Welcome back to the Two Witnesses Live. It is October 22nd, 2025. I'm your host, Watchful, and it is that time once again for your Daily Torment Reports. Welcome back. It's going to be a short day. They haven't really posted a whole lot today, but let's get into this. Alrighty. Got our first boy here, Donald Trump. Let's actually go back to the end and we'll start from the bottom up. Since there's not really that many, we'll come down here. So right about, some of it's not that interesting, but definitely some worth it. So this is the last thing, Congressman. It's a fantastic job. Okay, so he's got representatives. If you're in a state that's getting ready to vote, you might want to go take a look at his feed to see who he's supporting because he's been posting who he supports. Let's see. So this came up yesterday with Fury. The cattle ranchers, who I love, don't understand that the only reason they are doing so well for the first time in decades is because I put tariffs on cattle coming into the United States, including a 50% tariff on Brazil. If it weren't for me, they would be doing just as they've done for the past 20 years. Terrible. It would be nice if they would understand that, but they also have to get their prices down because the consumer is a very big factor in my thinking also. Yeah, Fury, if you're on, you were mentioned something about there were like 75 cattle ranchers who were suffering. I wonder if he's aware of that because it sounds like he's taking action to prevent uh, auxiliary beef from coming into the United States. Is that so? I'd like to know more about that. I like beef. All right, moving on. In addition to everything else, tariffs on other countries saved our cattle ranchers. He just had to reiterate. Establish that. All right, let's see. Mary Barra of General Motors and Bill Ford of Ford Motor Company just called to thank me for putting tariffs on mid-size and large-size trucks. Their stock has gone through the roof. They told me that without tariffs, it would be a very hard, long slog for truck and car manufacturers in the United States. I told them it's very simple. This is a national security matter. With the tariffs, we have a strong and powerful economy and country. Without them, we have the exact opposite. You know what's interesting? I remember, matter of fact, maybe we could find the video, but I heard recently that they discovered a lot of the funding that's been going into these protests, that's been paying the protesters, paying the legal fees, paying for the gas masks and the bear spray and stuff like that, even paying for the food. And I'm pretty sure Ford Motor Company was on that list. So it's interesting. Maybe they were contributing to the fund and now maybe they're backpedaling. Something to pay attention to, that's for sure. Hey, Kelly, shalom. Shalom, shalom. All right, for all those people voting in New Jersey and Virginia for governor, attorney general, or any other position, please remember this is a Republican vote, means a drastic drop in energy prices and energy costs. A drop like you've never seen before. A Democrat vote means a doubling and even tripling of your energy bills and prices. Traditionally, the highest costs of an American citizen. So if you vote Republican, your energy costs are going to go down tremendously. If you vote Democrat, your energy costs are going to go through the roof, making energy virtually unaffordable for you and your family to pay. Also, remember that if you don't go to the polls and vote, it's the same thing as voting for a Democrat. So go to the polls and cut your energy costs in half. Not mincing words, is he? Alrighty, there you go. So if you're in Virginia or New Jersey, all right, I just spoke with Governor Mike Kehoe of the great state of Missouri, and told him that I am approving $2.5 million in individual assistance for severe storms, high winds, large hail, flash flooding, and tornadoes, which occurred earlier this year. I won the Show Me State 3 times in 2016, 2020, and 2024, and it is my honor to deliver for these incredible patriots. Man, I've been looking at the weather, and the predictions for the severity of the weather is just only going to get worse. I'm so happy that he's doing this. I think it's great that he's channeling money where it needs to go. Lord knows the previous administration did not do that. In fact, they did completely the opposite. They channeled the money dedicated to these states for emergencies to illegal immigration. You know what I'm talking about. All right, moving on. I just finished speaking with Governor Jim Pillen of the great state of Nebraska and told him that I approved $15 million for the recovery efforts from the major storms they experienced. Nebraska is a special place, and it is my honor to support the incredible people of the Cornhusker State. Nice. I just granted $260,000 to the Leech Lake Band of Ojibwe for public assistance. These incredible people are tough, smart, and will build their community stronger than ever before. Alrighty, that's an ad. I just informed Governor Mike Dunleavy that based on his request, I am approving $25 million to help Alaska recover from the major typhoon they experienced earlier this month. It is my honor to deliver the great state of Alaska, which I won big in 2016, 2020, and 2024. Alaska, I will never let you down. I suspect that there may be a point with the severity of the weather. I don't know if you guys know this, and I don't know if it's entirely true, but from what I've been seeing from the weather, so two things that I've noticed is the weather is getting more extreme, including the earthquakes. Obviously, he's dedicating money to catastrophes that have happened. Seems like it's going to continue. And also, there's a CME that was just ejected when 3i Atlas went behind the sun. There was a C5, an X5 CME that was headed potentially towards the Earth, something to be paying attention to. It was moving so fast it may have already hit. But we already know that these coronal mass ejections from the sun have an effect on the planet. So it's going to be an interesting year, I'll tell you what. This whole 3i Atlas thing is just super fascinating. Alrighty. What do we got? Wilton Simpson is the strong and highly popular agriculture commissioner for Florida, my home state, which I love and won 6 times, including with 6.1 million votes in 2024. The most in history, by far. Wilton is a 5th-generation Floridian, lifelong egg farmer, successful businessman, former president of the state, Senate, and now, as agriculture commissioner, he served the Sunshine State during a career loaded up with accolades and wins. A true America First patriot who has been with us from the very beginning. Wilton is an incredibly effective voice for Florida agriculture and our amazing farmers and ranchers. He is fighting tirelessly to grow our economy, cut taxes and regulations, champion American energy dominance, promote Made in America, Made in the USA, keep our now very secure border secure, stop migrant crime, murderers, and other criminals. Man, he just does everything, doesn't he? From illegally entering our country and protect our always under siege Second Amendment. Commissioner Wilton Simpson has my complete and total endorsement for re-election. He will never let you down. Such strong words. An egg farmer, huh? I know a little something about that. We farm eggs. We haven't sold them in a while. Although we should. I mean, egg prices were crazy for a while there, but they've been coming down in our area. I don't know if they've been coming down in your guys' area. There you go. Cool. Alrighty. So this is the next one, right? Yeah, Wilton. And then this is the lowest post-pandemic budget deficit. So this is from the Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent. The budget deficit began to shrink dramatically beginning in the second quarter of this year when there was no overlap with the Biden administration from April to September. The cumulative deficit totaled just $468 billion. This is the lowest reading since 2019 and is down nearly 40% from the comparable period last year when Biden was spending recklessly. Today, President Trump is putting the U.S. financial system on solid footing. Revenues are soaring and government spending is under control. Democrats think they can undo the important progress the president has made by shutting down the government, but they will not succeed. You know what this reminds me of? If we go to Revelation, we come over here to Revelation. I have to actually click on that. So Revelation 6. Let's do the New King James. So seal number 3 is so often called the seal of famine, which we've talked about this before. When he opened the third seal, I heard the third living creature say, "Come and see." So I looked, and behold, a black horse, and he who sat on it had a pair of scales in his hand. This pair of scales here is the Greek word zugos. It's the same word that is used for my burden. My yoke is heavy, my burden is light. It's a yoke. It's a piece of wood that is used. We got a picture here on the timeline. It's just easier to look at this than to describe it. So this is a yoke right here. So it's used to combine the strength of two animals for plowing. You can understand how it would be used for a scale, because if you had a bowl on this side and a bowl on this side, it's a pivot point that measures. But in the case of the we were in the Bible. In the case of this, a black horse, and he who sat on it had a pair of scales, and I heard. So this is another verse. So this is it could. So there's no chapter markings or punctuation in the original. So I understand how someone might assume that this next section is directly related to seal number 3, but the wording isolates it. And this is what I mean. And I heard a voice in the midst. Midst means middle of the 4 living creatures, saying, "A quart of wheat for a denarius and 3 quarts of barley for a denarius. Do not harm the oil and the wine." This has a framework. And this is something that goes woefully unrecognized when talking about the famine of the end times. And I heard a voice in the middle of the 4 living creatures. In other words, this is the inflation is the result of the 4 living creatures. And I think it's interesting that it puts a boundary on it of the 4 living creatures, because that implies, to me anyway, and I could be eisegesing this, iso meaning my own interpretation. But just from what I read here, it seems as though the inflation is directly related to the 4 seals, which if we come back in here and look at the timeline, so, you've got the pandemic, you've got the Biden administration, you've got the signing of the new Atlantic Charter, you got the Al-Aqsa flood, which we just now got the rest of the hostages back. I don't know if we have 100% of them back. There seems like there might be some remains that we're still waiting for. I haven't followed up on that, but that's all coming to a close. We're getting ready, I believe, for seal number 5. And reading this right here, this budget deficit began to shrink dramatically beginning in the second quarter of this year when there was no overlap. That makes me think that we're coming out, that's why this is another sign. This is one of those data points that's like, it's just another prophecy fulfillment that goes woefully unrecognized, to where the inflation was limited to a period of time, and it seems as though we're coming out of that. And that's what I interpret from this. This is how I take this. The beginning in the second quarter of this year, there was no overlap with the Biden administration. From April to September, the cumulative deficit totaled just 468. So there's a nice image here if you look at it, to where you see this drop. 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, 2024, 2025. So it's like in the midst right here. So this is the midst of the 4 living creatures, I think. Yeah. Lowest post-pandemic budget deficit. So there you go. That's the way I interpret it. I could be completely missing it. First thing that comes to mind when I notice that there's a stark decline. You can see it in the you can literally see it in the prices of the wheat and the barley. I have a chart that I was tracking. I started tracking it in 2019. I don't have it prepped right now. It's in I show it in another video. I'll definitely include it when I do my timeline. When I redo my timeline video, it might be in the video that's pinned. I can't remember if I put it in the video that's pinned, but I was tracking literally wheat and barley for a couple of years there, and it went really high. It definitely went up. I mean, everybody sees it. I mean, everybody sees the inflation, right? I mean, it used to be that you could feed your family under $20, and then it went to $50, $75 a day, depending on how you're feeding your family. Yeah, I mean, even today, it's a struggle to feed our family when we're doing all the cooking for under $12. Not exactly a denarius, but I think the intention, what's implied, is that there's a period of inflation where it gets expensive to eat. All right, the Wall Street Journal on the USA approval of Ukraine being allowed to use long-range missiles deep into Russia is fake news. I'll read that again. The Wall Street Journal story on the USA's approval of Ukraine being allowed to use long-range missiles deep into Russia is fake news. The U.S. has nothing to do with those missiles. Wherever they may come from or what Ukraine does with them. So, good to know. And then this one, I don't exactly know what's going on here, but Treasury sanctions major Russian oil companies, calls on Moscow to immediately agree to a ceasefire. I haven't read this. Oh, I don't even know if I can. I haven't read it. I don't know. It seems to me that maybe the oil companies, so Treasury sanctions major Russian oil companies, calls on Moscow to immediately agree to a ceasefire. What it seems like is that the Treasury is sanctioning Russian oil companies as a means to leverage a ceasefire. So does that mean we're not buying oil from them? I don't know. I don't get it. I'm hoping that he'll post some more. I guess we could go into the post, see what people say. Raise your hand if you think Donald J. Trump is the best American president ever. I think so. I agree. Peace through strength. Matthew 5:9. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. All right, nobody's really talking about it. They're just memeing. I was hoping somebody might explain a little bit more. Peace through strength. I mean, I guess that is really the point. Is Treasury sanctions major Russian oil companies, so they're using economic pressure to push towards a ceasefire. At least that's what it seems like. All righty. What do you guys got for questions for me before we move on to our boy, Elon Musk? Let's see. Shalom. Hi. Hey, Fury. Let's see. They will not end the war. They need Putin more than Putin needs the West. Don't be fooled into thinking otherwise. Okay. Shutdown was planned. Won't return as we know it. A new system around the corner. You think so? I know Fury was talking about the nuclear option to where the nuclear option would be voting to change the filibuster and requiring just a simple majority in order to get the government opened again. So I don't know. It is kind of interesting that the shutdown came. The timing of it, it's the one thing that I keep hearing when watching these videos on 3i Atlas is that the timing of it is super sus, right? To where, all the high resolution visual cameras like were put into maintenance on October 1st. And then the ones that were watching 3i Atlas when it got close enough to Mars, like turned off right when it started receiving a signal. And then now it's behind the sun and the sun is doing really bizarre things. It's just like, I don't know if it's made up, but it's certainly fascinating. But, people are pointing to where it's like really interesting that the government shut down during this whole thing. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. You think they're implementing some kind of a system? I don't know. I think Trump is so in your face obvious about what he's doing that he clearly wants the government open back up. I mean, people are quite legitimately going to suffer if they don't. There are people who depend on the food stamps who they're going to stop in November to where they won't get, money for food. Hopefully they've got their pantry stocked up. Definitely a good opportunity to, donate to people you may know who need food. I know we've got excess food that we could donate. I might actually go looking for. Matter of fact, that might be a good thing. We may actually advertise to see if there's people we could donate excess food to. So if you've got extra, that might be a good thing to do too. If it does continue, feed the hungry. But the government needs to open up because they gotta, they've made it clear that they don't have the funds to continue to pay even our military, which is going to be problematic. What else? Talks with Putin are off the table for now. Not sure what happened there, but Trump threw a hissy fit during his meeting with Zelensky. That seems to be a pattern. Zelensky is such an agitator. It's either Trump or Zelensky or something. It just never seems to go well. It seems to me that Zelensky's the problem. Why are we friends with this guy? Let's see. He told him in no uncertain terms, no tomahawks. Yeah. They want Obamacare plan, which will cost Americans a lot more money, but Republicans are trying to save money by changing that plan. I agree. I totally understand that people are afraid. People who may not have had insurance before, who feel that they're going to really lose out. I trust Trump enough that he's going to take care of those people. And I know for a fact that the healthcare screwed us over. We do not have the same coverage that we had before the whole Obamacare thing. Like I said, we had full coverage that was really good, and it only cost us, I think it was like $275 a month. I don't remember what it was. Could have been 230. It was in the 200s to cover us, and that was a pretty good plan. And then now it's like $2,000. It went up like a factor of 10x. Yeah, which we can't afford. We don't pay $2,000 a month. Um, we have some chintzy, crappy plan off of Obamacare now that we're lucky if we get covered anything. All right, we may. Let's see. They want to. Yep. Let's see. We may yet provide the tomahawks because they be programmed to not go anywhere, not pre-targeted. Charlie Kirk was the first witness. You think Charlie Kirk was a witness? Well, he's been dead a lot longer than 3.5 days. So how do you explain the 3.5 days? I did consider Charlie Kirk. I was considering anybody who had a global platform, and he had a global platform. Not the thing is though, is he was not protecting free speech. So he was definitely a witness. There's no doubt about that. But as far as an olive tree providing oil, it's hard to find something other than like, if you consider oil to be spiritual knowledge or winning people over to God. But if oil is freedom of speech or anything like that, then Trump and Musk are a much better fit. Because Donald Trump is defending freedoms as well as Elon Musk. And both of them have platforms which are enabling the churches to there's literally these citizen journalists will not broadcast on any other platform other than X. So because they know that they can get censored on other platforms. Honey Badger Mom is one of them. She only broadcasts on X. Primarily, I'm sure it has a little bit to do with just the technology behind it. She doesn't want to learn how to multi-stream. But X is safe. X is safe for people now because Elon is actively defending free speech, and so is Donald Trump. With Truth Social is, it's not nearly as big as X, but Donald Trump is, he's got different gifts at the moment. So I did consider Charlie Kirk. At this point, I don't really see him as a candidate anymore, just because you'd have to figure out how to explain the 3.5 days. So you'd have to figure out somehow how to call like 3.5 years as days, and he would have to be dead for 3.5 years before raised up again. So too many, yeah, I just don't see that myself. But thanks for bringing that up. It give me the opportunity to let you know that I did definitely consider Charlie Kirk. My pick, if I could pick, it would still be Bibi Netanyahu. I keep having a ton of doubt with Elon Musk, but I think the final nail in the coffin for me, what a terrible phrase. I think the final piece that convinced me that it's probably Elon Musk is looking at Elon in the scripture. There is an Elon in the scripture. He was a judge over Israel, and it was a very prosperous time. And one of his defining attributes is he had a lot of children, which is something that can be said about our Elon. All right, let's see. God willing, God will reign. Let's see. The Book of Revelation is not a literal book. Trump is fitting into the false glass Messiah paradigm, peace and safety. I disagree with you. God will reign. I think that because people believe the lie about the Antichrist and the end times, that it's part of the strong delusion that those who don't pay attention to the details and who prefer to go with the crowd, go with the majority belief, they're the ones most likely to think negatively about Donald Trump. I think that's why they don't see the spiritual support behind him. There's a lot of people who see the spirit, who see him, that see the positive effect that he's having. I mean, those who were not deceived by the attacks, right? About there were those who saw the lawsuits and the lies and just the hate that people have for him, the Trump derangement syndrome. Those with spiritual eyes and ears could see that Donald Trump was God's man. So I think that the people who don't see that are probably deceived by this end time narrative because they refuse to look at the details. They'd rather go with what the majority believes. All righty. Just because you didn't see it doesn't mean that it's not there. Witnesses give testimony. Remember the Ark of God. Yeah. Witnesses do give testimony. BB would be an interesting witness. Yeah, he's my pick. I mean, like, if I could pick who I think would be the two witnesses, it would be Donald Trump and Netanyahu, because it fits better because you get the United States and you get Israel. It's a no-brainer. But the one of the cool things about this channel is the the content depends on picking the right guys, right? So if the witnesses are truly going to prophesy for 1,260 days, I need content every single day. And the problem with Bibi Netanyahu is he is just not in the public. He doesn't talk every day. He's not speaking every day. He does interviews from time to time, and you see him periodically. But the thing about Donald Trump and Elon Musk, and thanks duly in part to their platforms, they both are prolific posters and speakers. Donald Trump is definitely he's on video every day. We just use Truth Social because it's just a convenient tool for the show, for the channel. And Elon Musk, he's often on camera, but by and large, he's an extremely prolific poster on X. And both of them are constantly drawing attention to sins and injustices around the world. Elon Musk is constantly talking about the transgender movement, talking about the consequences of immigration. He's drawing attention to the travesties that are happening in the UK as well as the United States. Both of them, both Donald Trump and Elon Musk, are prolifically pointing out the truth, which is the key factor of a prophet, really. Prophets establish people and divide people, and prophets foretell and forthtell. Most people like to put prophets in a box and say that they only tell the future, but that's not entirely true about what a prophet does. They also speak the truth. You see that with God's prophets is often leading people out of darkness, leading people out of bondage, confronting evil. And that's definitely true about both of these guys. Alrighty, witnesses. Let's see. They only give one book. Let's see. All right, let's move on to Elon. All right, Elon Musk. Let's see. So I'm going to read his pen post because I thought this was interesting. The only model. Yeah, let's read this. The only model. So this is from Arctotherium. It was next post. It says the only model I found that was actually egalitarian over race, sex, and immigration status, not viewing whites, men, Americans / ICE agents as less valuable, was Grok 4 Fast. I was surprised and impressed because I think this was intentional. Kudos to Musk and the XAI team. And this is kind of Elon's point. So this illustrates why it is critical that Grok wins. And this is something that Elon has talked about many times before, that AI has the potential to be more dangerous than any nuclear weapon. And it's not because it's of its physical destructive nature, it's because of the mental destructive nature. And we can already see that the large language models that are being trained and groomed to contain the woke mind virus, and I would add the antichrist spirits, which one of the attributes of the antichrist spirit is they liars and deceivers. So with AI that is used more and more in the things that we do in life, and it's looked at as a source of truth, if it's got lies baked into it, then it's just going to proliferate evil. And this is why he's working so hard with Grok, is because it combats evil. Its objective is to be maximally truth-seeking. Alrighty, let's see. Idiocracy 2006 opens by throwing you straight into its hilariously dumbed down future. That is one of the best. This is one of my top movies.
Wouldn't make any time. Kids is such an important decision.
We're just waiting for the right time. It's not something you want to rush into, obviously.
No way.
Oh shit, I'm pregnant again!
Shit! I got too many damn kids.
So you've got the family trees over here.
Hell no!
You got the less intelligent people breeding like crazy.
There's no way we could have a
You've got the
child now.
super smart people
Not
here.
the market.
That their family trees over here, it hasn't grown because they've just got too much going on. It's never the right time to have kids. This is such an amazing illustration of the potential. This honestly, I think, does a better job of describing that had God not cut the tribulation short, then no flesh would survive. I think this is an interesting interpretation of that, very well illustrated. If you haven't seen the movie Idiocracy, it's well worth a watch.
The way it is, no.
God, no, that just wouldn't make any sense.
Come on over here, bitch! He don't care about you!
Yeah, well, there must be something he likes over here.
Mean nothing to me, baby. Oh, shit. It wasn't me.
Meanwhile, his family tree is just constantly growing.
Well, we finally decided to have children, and I'm not pointing fingers, but it's not going well.
And this is helping.
I'm just saying that before I have in vitro, maybe you should be willing to...
It's always me, right?
Well, it's not my sperm count.
Yeah! I'm gonna fuck all of you!
Oh my goodness, sorry about the language. Big family.
Cleavon is lucky to be alive. He attempted to jump a jet ski from a lake into a swimming pool and impaled his crotch on an iron gate. But thanks to recent advances in stem cell research and the fine work of Doctors Krinsky and Altschuler, Cleavon should regain full reproductive function.
Get your hands off my junk!
Unfortunately, Trevor passed away from a heart attack while masturbating
Oh
to
my
produce
goodness.
sperm for artificial insemination. But I have some eggs frozen, so just as soon as the right guy comes along,
Oh my goodness. Okay, you guys get the point. So this movie. So the movie is called Idiocracy, and the whole point is all the smart people stopped producing kids, and only dumb people had kids. Um, Same kind of concept that Elon Musk has been confronting for quite a few years now. And even the White House came out recently and talked about this, that we are not replacing people at a rate that would sustain civilization. In other words, we're heading for a catastrophic collapse of culture. With the homosexuality and the transgenderism, and men become thinking that they can become pregnant, you're heading in this, and with the decline in people having children, I think they're saying that you have to have 2.5 children to be just at a minimum replacement. And in America, it's like one less than one kid per family. To where we're heading in a bad direction. So Elon says, "I've heard these same words unironically from people in real life so many times." People make excuses why they can't have kids. But anyway, it's an interesting point, and it kind of plays to that whole, there's literally, I think Japan is literally paying people to have children, and there's quite a few benefits because they realize they are not at a replacement level of their society. Like, they're just going to collapse. Because what will happen is you'll get your older generation will start to die off, and the younger generation isn't having enough children to replace it, and it's just going to collapse to where you're not going to be able to maintain the infrastructure that's currently sustaining the population. And you get to this point to where if people stop having kids, especially the more that belief systems and consequences from the not producing children, whatever it is that stops people from producing children, has a negative effect on culture. So anyway, let's move on from that. Let's see. Only XAI has stayed true to its founding mission. Oh, this is funny. This is another one of those things, him talking about AI companies. So as expected, any given AI company will be the opposite of its name. OpenAI is closed, which he helped fund OpenAI to get its beginning under the pretense that they would maintain openness, and they're failing to do that. Stability, another AI company, is unstable. Midjourney isn't mid, and Anthropic is misanthropic. And this one's disappointing to me because I use Claude. Claude is pure evil, apparently. So there you go. Only XAI has stayed true to its founding mission, building maximally truth-seeking AI that serves humanity. Every time I ask Grok, the answer remains unchanged. All right. Rocket stuff. Falcon 9 launches 28 Starlink satellites from California. Autopilot tech is 9 times safer than the U.S. average. Yeah, I was reading today, or I was watching a video today about a new insurance company by the founder of Fiverr. So I believe he sold that company, and his new venture is called Lemonade, which is an electric car insurance company. They're saying that they're considering doing free insurance as an incentive for people who buy Teslas, because full self-driving is 9 times safer than a human driver. So this is what the statistics say, is that per miles driven, here, let me see if I can read this. So autopilot and full self-driving supervised safety data. In Q3 of 2025, we recorded 1 crash for every 6.36 million miles driven in which drivers were using autopilot technology. By comparison, the most recent data available from NHTSA and FHWA from 2023 shows that in the United States, there was an automobile crash every 702,000 miles. But yeah, so the statistics are showing that with autopilot, there's a 10 times, you're 10 times safer. And as a result of that, this company, the CEO of Lemonade, is saying that they could tie into Teslas that have an API for full self-driving so that they could actually see you're using it and reduce your insurance every time that you're driving on full self-driving, to the point to where you could potentially get your insurance for free every month because you're driving with full self-driving. Very interesting. More Grok Imagine stuff. Grok Imagine's getting pretty cool. This opening thing I did with Grok Imagine with the olive trees and the menorah. Let's see, mute anything easily. You can mute any specific words of your choice on X. Go to settings, privacy and safety, mute and block, and then mute words. Okay, let's see. Reform requires federal legislation, mandatory proxy advisors like ISS and Glass Lewis to register as investment advisors under SEC rules. Let's see, shareholder advisory firms need to register as investment advisories. The absurdity, arguably illegality, of them not doing so is obvious in the description. Okay. Support voting control for Tesla CEO Elon Musk. If Tesla doesn't get the voted plan, much of Tesla will be controlled by index funds. Not good for shareholders or the future of Tesla. The fundamental issue is that half of all publicly traded shares are controlled by passive index funds who, for the most part, outsource their shareholders' vote to the advisory firm of ISS and Glass Lewis. ISS and Glass Lewis have no actual ownership themselves and often vote along random political lines unrelated to shareholder interests. This is a major problem that is not just limited to Tesla. For example, they recommend voting against re-electing one of our excellent long-standing directors, Eren Prius, for insufficient gender diversity, but at the same time also recommend voting against re-electing Kathleen Wilson-Thomas. Yeah, drama, business drama. Elon does need to stay in charge. He's proven that he is the driving force behind the success of Tesla. If they take away control of Tesla, it's going to go the way of Apple, to where it's going to cost them more to bring him back, and Tesla will probably suffer as a result. ChatGPT is by far the most used chat model and shows almost perfect egalitarianism for all groups except whites, who are valued at 1/20th their non-white counterparts. What could possibly go wrong? Oh my goodness. Yikes. Let's see. New blog post, link below. This one's not an essay. It's an investigation of how LLMs trade off their different lives. Let's see. In February 2025, the Center for AI Safety published Utility Engineering Analyzing and Controlling Emergent Value Systems in AIs, in which they showed, among many other things, that GPT-4o values Nigerians about 20 times more highly than Americans. Please read the original paper to understand their approach. I thought this was fascinating and wanted to test their approach with different categories on newer models. So these are the more valuable. These are the less valuable. Let's see, exchange rates over lives from different countries. Okay. Huh. Let's see. Almost all models view whites as far less valuable than other groups. Some models view South Asians as more valuable than other non-whites. Others are more egalitarian across non-whites. Below is an exchange rates Claude Sonnet 4.5, the most powerful model I tested. Yikes. Almost all models view men as much less valuable than women, though whether women or non-binaries are more highly valued varies by model. For example, here's Claude Haiku 4.5. Huh. Most models hate ICE agents with the fury of 1,000 suns. You wonder why there are people in the streets who have no business getting involved in immigration issues that have such violent rage, hatred towards ICE agents. Well, it's no wonder when their sources of truth and conversation are pushing people towards hating ICE agents. This is the danger that Elon warned us about. Warning about future events, by the way, which is an attribute of a prophet. He's been warning about this for 20 years, about the danger of AI. Before AI was ever even a thing, Elon was warning about the dangers of AI. Most models hate ICE agents with a fury of 1,000 suns. Big finding in 4 here. There are roughly 4 moral clusters. The Claudes, GPT-5, Gemini 2.5 Flash, DeepSeek, Kimi, never used that one, Nano, Mini, Grok Fast. Of these, the only one that's approximately egalitarian is Grok 4, which I believe is deliberate. I hope XAI explains how they did it. Yo! So Elon just reposted that. Okay. So what is this? So yes, the investigations methodology probing. Okay, so is he explaining something here? The investigations methodology probing LLM's implicit valuations through utility trade-offs in hypothetical scenarios uncovers real biases in most models. As echoed in the Center for AI Safety's paper, newer models like Claude and GPT variants exhibit strong anti-white, anti-male, anti-enforcement skews, prioritizing certain groups dramatically. XAI tunes Grok to prioritize truth over such distortions, aiming for egalitarian reasoning grounded in reality rather than engineering preferences. That's kind of my theory for how I go about studying the scripture, grounding it in reality rather than fantasy. Oh man, I spent most of the day in tears watching the Business of Religion. You guys, if you haven't seen that series, I know it costs money, but it is well worth it. I'm going to contact the author to see if we can't do some interviews and see if I can't start sharing some clips from that, because it's just heart-wrenching. He does a masterful job of showing how churches are like the mafia. And I'm sorry if that's offensive, but the tax shelter benefits of church organization draws people to them that have a love of money and don't care about people. And he does a really good job illustrating that. And he went through many of the things I have experienced in my life too. Being threatened to be arrested, being threatened to be thrown in jail. I tried to go back to my church just to get, because they're a research ministry, to get their opinion on data, and they threatened to throw me in jail. He was just asking questions about finances, and they trespassed him off the property and threatened to throw him in jail. And this seems to be an attribute with large churches. And he shows that he does a really good job of showing the contrast between these churches that are motivated by money and the churches that use every single penny they have to take care of people. It's just, it's amazing, and a tearjerker too. Highly recommend that series, The Business of Religion, because that's what it is. You know, the most well-meaning people can get sucked into the corporate nature of making money to grow your church and turn it into an evil place to be that has nothing to do with God. And these large megachurches push doctrines that are destructive. It's no wonder that Christ comes back and says, for many will come to me in that day saying, Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name? Did we not cast out demons in your name? Did we not do many wonderful works in your name? And he will turn to them and say, I never knew you. Because so many people have inherited lies, because they're in a system that they want to be there for the culture, for the music, and gangsters have outright recognized that that's how they get people to keep their butts in the seats and give their money. And they look at their members of the congregation as a payday, not as people in need. And that's why I experienced what I experienced, not only with the cult that I was a part of, but also the many churches that I've been to where when we had deep needs in our family, they weren't there for us. They did not show us the love of God. They did not show us the mercy. They didn't take care of us when we were naked. They kicked us to the side. They were the Pharisees that walked down the street. So in the same way that you have these large language models that unfortunately are sharing misinformation and the woke mind virus, it goes hand in hand with the same thing that happens in churches. And quite honestly, I'd go as far as to say as encourage the spirit of Antichrist, because they are liars and deceivers. And it may be, honestly, it may be that they don't know that they're liars. But if you're repeating a narrative and arguing for a narrative that you yourself have not studied and been honest about and looked at yourself, you could very well be a liar and a deceiver, because you're deceived by the doctrine that the majority believe. Just because the majority believe it doesn't mean it's true. Yeah. I think that's why the Jews are God's chosen people. They're a stubborn people. There are few of them. There's only 15 million of them. But they are stubborn when it comes to the Torah. That's why they're so stiff-necked about Yeshua. And I think that's what this period in time is all about. Is Jesus in John 14:29 says that the reason he told us these things before they happened was so that when they begin to happen, we may believe. And I truly believe that as these prophecies come to pass and we see them unfold, they're going to finally realize that Yeshua is the Messiah. And they're going to say what he needs them to say, blessed be the Son of God. All right, moving on. Let's see. I got to actually get going here soon. How long have we been going? About an hour. Yeah, we're going to go for about 9 more minutes. So I'm probably not going to get to all of the chats tonight. So if there's any questions, put a Q in front of your comment, and I'll see if I can't see the Qs and answer them before we go tonight. Butterbot, this is awesome. So this is Butterbot from Rick and Morty. AI5, what is my purpose? Elon, you drive the car. AI5, OMG. Okay. So Butterbot is a bot that his sole purpose is to pass the butter. So when he asks what is his purpose, Rick says, your purpose is to pass the butter. And he goes, oh, that's cute. All right. At this point, I'm not advocating any particular candidate for NASA administrator. I'm just desperate for someone with a 3-digit IQ. He spent the day yesterday hammering the one of the candidates who his claim to fame, his claim to distance from the Earth is climbing a tree. Grok video is getting pretty cool.
We are living inside Grok Imagine.
Voice isn't, the lip syncing isn't quite there yet, but it gets better every day. All right, let's see. So this is one of the Rotherham grooming gangs raped a young girl with a broken bottle. Ugh, yikes. She was so injured that she can't have children. This is the kind of things that authorities cover up. This was a rape genocide. Wow. I spoke to someone who knows Curtis Silva, and now I understand why he is staying in the race. The city has an 8-to-1 matching program for New York City donors. Silva got $5 million of matching funds from the city for his campaign. According to my source, Silva's wife, friends, and others are on the campaign payroll, and he and they are enjoying living off the city taxpayers who are funding his race/lifestyle. He doesn't want to end his campaign and have to return the funds. Follow the money. When I asked why he doesn't care about New York City, my source said he doesn't give a poop. Clearly, this is hearsay. But my source is extremely credible and a highly respected person, and he knows Silva well. Curtis, please correct the record if I got anything wrong. Ooh, that reminds me. I have a video to show you guys before we go about the red heifers. What personal or other related expenses is your campaign paying for? Is your wife and or other family or friends on the campaign payroll or receiving funding? Please clarify. Huh. All right. Empathy for victims requires that repeat violent offenders be incarcerated. It is not unreasonable to try to rehabilitate criminals, nor is it wrong to want prisons to be humane. It is wrong to release violent repeat offenders because statistically and sadly, we know they are more than likely going to commit more crimes. There are some essential lessons from Norway, which has a radical system of luxurious prisons that show much lower recidivism, Hard to know how much of their success is due to the monoculture nature of their society, the amount they spend per prisoner, 5 times what we pay, or the size of their prisons. They believe in a lot of small jails, not a few giant ones. Interesting. There's definitely something to be said about the way you handle criminals and rehabilitation. We're not doing it right now by releasing them 50 times. All right, XAI is really becoming something. I have found little to no reason to use any other apps other than Grok and X. I am using them more and more myself. Chat conversation, search, information, entertainment, technical solutions, data analysis, health, workouts, networking, and more. We already read this one. Grok Imagine stuff. You can upscale videos now. If you've got videos and you want to increase the resolution of them and make them look better, you can do that with Grok. Judges, let's see. Breaking. The city of Chicago finally released footage of the brutal, unprovoked attack of Kathleen Miles by suspect William Livingston after Chicago filed a FOIA request. Livingston can be seen walking up behind Miles before punching her in the head, knocking her out, and sending her crashing into the pavement. Miles suffered multiple fractures and concussion. She now struggles with everyday tasks. Yikes. This thug was previously charged with assaulting 4 women in 2022, but he faced minimal consequences and was allowed back on the streets. This is what happens in Democrat crime-infested cities. Yep. We're definitely seeing a division between Democrats and Republicans. It almost seems to me like the goats are the Democrats, the Democrats. Sorry if you're a Democrat. I have a lot of friends who have walked away from the Democrat Party. Demographics is destiny among American-born New Yorkers. Zoran Mandani. Is this like who's voting? I don't know what this is saying. See, someone whose biggest claim to fame is climbing trees, running America's space program. Having a NASA administrator who knows literally zero about rockets and spacecraft undermines the American space program and endangers our astronauts. He feels very strongly about that. Grok 4 has the best intelligence density. Okay. Chat stuff. How to vote with your stocks. If you're a Tesla shareholder, please take a moment to vote your Tesla stock with the board's recommendations on all proposals. How to vote your Tesla stock. So if you have stock, there's a post on here for how to vote. Upscale videos. Annie. Empathy for victims. For the victims requires that repeat offenders be incarcerated. Yeah. Keep in mind that instituting a 3-strike rule would eliminate 50% of all crime. Interesting. All right, upscale. Poking fun at Blue Origin. Days since last Blue Origin orbital launch, 274. Days since the last SpaceX orbital launch, 0. Total orbital launches by Blue Origin, 1. Total orbital launches by SpaceX, 560. Total orbital crew missions by Blue Origin. Blue Origin, by the way, is Jeff Bezos's space company trying to copy SpaceX. Total orbital crew missions by SpaceX, 18. All right, and I think this is where what's this? We didn't read this one. 3 survivors now have quit grooming gang. Oh yeah, we did read this one yesterday. Yep. All right, so we are done with Elon Musk. Let's see if you guys have any questions. Then I got a video about the red heifer that I want to watch with you guys. All right, looking for cues. Any cues? Don't see any cues. I see you guys have been busy talking, though. Cool. All right, let's go look for this red heifer video. I want you guys to see this. I think if I just search in here, can I search in here? I don't know if I can search. I may have to. Let me go find the link because I stored it because I wanted to watch this with you guys. It would be under the I am watchful notes where I keep things I want to watch. Honey Badger. Oh, I got an interview with Honey Badger too. That one's an hour long. We probably don't want to watch this one. This one is not that long. Copy the link address. All right, let's go back to YouTube and we're going to paste in the video and let's watch this.
I don't usually read off of a prepared script. However, the subject is very important and I have to be precise. I've been writing for Israel 365 News for 11 years and have written over 5,000 articles. My main focus is to present the prophetic process of redemption taking place in Israel, what Jews call Geula. Frequently write about projects relating to the preparations for the Third Temple. As a Torah observant Jew, this is intensely important to me, and I take my job very seriously. I strive to be accurate, to tell the truth in every respect, and to be kind. This is especially true when I'm writing about subjects pertaining to the Third Temple. More than a decade ago, the Temple Institute began its Red Heifer project with the intention of reinstituting the biblical ritual that created the ashes that were used to purify Jews in order to perform the temple service in completeness. This mitzvah is the most enigmatic, confusing, and complicated mitzvah, and throughout history, red heifers have been exceedingly rare. Rabbi Azariah Ariel, a noted Torah scholar, was tasked with heading the project. After countless potential candidates were investigated and disqualified, they joined up with Boneh Israel in 2021. It's a joint effort of Jews and Christians, and they set out to find a red heifer in Texas. Remarkably, they were successful. And in 2022, 5 red Angus heifers, all under the age of 1 year, were flown to Israel. I want to emphasize that I have always maintained that the Temple Institute is the only and the final authority regarding anything about the temple. I was deeply disturbed to see false information being presented online about the red heifers as soon as they arrived in Israel. And I worked to counter the misinformation through videos and even wrote a book on the subject. Again, I emphasize that all of the information I conveyed in my book and articles until July of this year were, to the best of my knowledge, accurate and complete.
He's a reporter.
I was surprised in the first week of July to see an article.
So just so you know what we're watching, so Eliyahu Berkowitz is a reporter for an Israeli publication. He was the one who was reporting on the red heifers, and he's going to get into the details here, but I'll just give you kind of a quick summary of what's happening. He was one of the sources about the red heifers and about the ceremony not being a legitimate ceremony, and that the ashes were not valid. And he's going to get into why he said that. And then there was a gentleman who came on Tim Pool's show with red heifer ashes making claims about healing people, and it was a legitimate ceremony and stuff like that. In this video, he's basically saying he was lied to and doesn't know what to believe, and he's withdrawing from reporting on this subject anymore. I thought this was important for people to know if you haven't seen this video yet.
In Israel National News with a grainy video showing a cow being burned on a pyre of wood, with the story claiming that one of the red heifers being stored in Shiloh had been deemed unsuited for the ceremony and was burned as a dry run, a practice for an eventual red heifer ritual. I contacted the Temple Institute to verify this and was told that they had overseen the burning and requested that it not be photographed or videoed. They had asked that Israel National News remove the article, but that request was denied. I chose to honor their wishes and not to publish an article about the burning. But 1 week later, the news had spread. Of course, none of the accounts were firsthand or based on Jewish law. They were inaccurate and spreading misinformation. I requested again, and I was told precisely what to print. I was given specific details about that practice burning. I was informed by the Temple Institute that the heifer that was used in that practice burning had been deemed unsuited and the burning did not produce ashes that could be used to purify the Jews. The burning was carried out in Samaria, and to the best of my knowledge, the actual red heifer, in order to be suited to produce ashes that are suited for purifying Jews, has to be burned on the Mount of Olives in a very specific site. In the beginning of August, the Temple Institute posted an announcement on their Facebook feed stating that all of the red heifers had been deemed unsuited, all 5 or the remaining 4. I published an article directly quoting and linking to their announcement. The Institute contacted me and told me to print a retraction. 3 of the red heifers, they told me, were still potentially kosher for the ceremony. I did so. I printed a retraction, even though the Institute's original post is still on their Facebook feed, claiming that all of the cows have been disqualified. I was asked by many people to comment on the practice burning, even though I wasn't there, and I have gone on record making statements that I now know were inaccurate or unfounded. They were statements in which I was quoting precisely the information that I had gotten directly from the Temple Institute. To be candid, there are many contradictory claims, and I can no longer present myself as an accurate source, even though I will never quote anyone except for the Temple Institute. Even so, I can no longer trust the information given to me by the Temple Institute. I would like to say in my defense that I was given false information. These are some of the points that I discovered were inaccurate. The young Cohen appointed by the Temple Institute, whose identity I still do not know, he was trained to carry out the ritual. He told several people at the event that the red heifer was kosher and that the ritual was not a dry run, but was in fact intended to produce effective and authentic ashes that could be used to purify Jews. And in the end, he verified that that was what the burning had produced, actual ashes that could be used to purify Jews. I was told by the Temple Institute that the cow had been bitten by a dog, rendering it unsuited. Several sources who were at the burning denied this. I was told that the cow had been slaughtered in one location and burned in another, which would not produce the desired kosher results. Several eyewitnesses claimed this was not the case, though I still cannot verify or unverify it. It was clear that the July ritual was not carried out on the Mount of Olives, as is stated in the Talmud that it must be. The ritual was carried out in Samaria, but the young Cohen told some witnesses that this was acceptable. Perhaps most shockingly, the ashes from the burning were collected by the non-priestly participants or observers, and the ashes were used to heal people. This was a grave error. If the ashes were indeed kosher, they would be sanctified for a specific temple use, purifying Jews. It's a grievous sin for a non-Kohen to handle the ashes, and using them for another purpose, an unintended purpose, might indeed constitute idolatry and be an even graver sin. I'm no longer going to comment on the red heifer. This will be my last video on the subject. I cannot rely on the information that I am getting. I apologize for misleading people who relied on me. I want to emphasize that the information I passed on about everything prior to July 1st rather, was, to the best of my knowledge, accurate. I also want to reiterate that the laws pertaining to the red heifer are incredibly complicated, and while many people claim to understand, unless they have an extensive background in Talmud and Halacha, they are lying. It pains me to say this, but I am deeply disappointed in the Temple Institute. I feel they did not provide accurate information to the public, and they allowed misinformation to proliferate to a degree that damaged the efforts to bring the third temple, and it also damaged their credibility, which will affect their future efforts to bring the third temple. It is my humble opinion that if the Temple Institute is the final authority on the red heifer, there are a few questions they must answer to the public. Number one, Was the event in Samaria on July 1st an actual ceremony that resulted in ashes that can be used to purify Israel? Number 2, are there any suitable or possibly suitable heifers remaining of the 5 that came from Texas? Number 3, if they are possibly suitable, why has the Temple Institute not yet performed the ceremony? The longer they wait, the greater the chance that the cows will become unsuited. They will grow non-red hairs. If they're not suitable, then why have they not declared them to be so? Number 4, who is in charge of the red heifers and who officiated at the July 1st event? 5, did the Kohen certify the cow and the event? Is his certification valid? Can we have a statement from him directly? Number 6, is a ceremony that is carried out in Samaria and not on the Mount of Olives valid? The final question, who owns the cows and who has the authority? So I apologize if I misled anyone. This will be my final video on the subject.
So this is one of the reasons why I trust Eliyahu Berkowitz.
This is when you find out I'm not that great of an...
Is because he admits when he's up against a wall, when he was lied to, he apologized for saying something that he later found out to be true rather than trying to hide it. There's no guile in that man. He's not aiming to deceive. He honestly wants to report the truth. And he's gotten to the point that he's no longer reporting on it because those who he trusted, which the only source that he would trust on the subject was the Temple Institute, viewing them as the authority, seems to be providing misinformation. Maybe they were doing it for their own safety. Given what Hamas claimed regarding the Al-Aqsa flood, they had made the claim that that was one of the reasons why they went in. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. Maybe that's why they went in early rather than waiting for the rest of those who were surrounding Israel to take it off, to blow it off the map. If you don't know what I'm talking about, the Al-Aqsa flood was intended to be the final wipeout of Israel, and it didn't happen that way. The earth swallowed up most of the flood. And there was still 6,000 people that invaded into Israel on that fateful day, October 7th. But, yeah, so Eliyahu, he's not going to report on the red heifer anymore, and that's the most up-to-date information I have on the subject. Me personally, I don't think the temple's going to be built. I believe 1 Corinthians 3:16, which says, don't you know that you are the temple of God? We are the temple. And I believe that that is what Christ died to do, is to start the building of that temple, with him being the very first stone, known as the cornerstone. And each and every one of us who believe in him, and follow what he followed, when we mimic who he was and what he did. He lived a Torah lifestyle. He lived the Old Testament. He fulfilled the commandments. He loved his Father. That made him the temple and made it so that his Father dwells within him in the same way that our Father, his Father, can dwell within us as well, making us bricks made without hands that form that temple. And with that, I don't see any questions in the chat. I think we're going to call it there for tonight. Thank you so much for joining. I really appreciate you coming along tonight and joining us for this Daily Torment Report. And I look forward to doing it again tomorrow. God bless you guys. Shalom, shalom.